I never asked for the farm. I never imagined inheriting $2 million worth of land, orchards, and ecosystems carefully designed by the grandparents who raised me. All I ever wanted was a place where peace grew as easily as the crops. But the day my grandmother passed, the deed slipped into my hands like a blessing wrapped in a burden. I accepted it quietly, tenderly, with the kind of gratitude that stings the eyes. For a while, things felt stable. I woke at dawn, sipped coffee on the balcony, and listened to the hum of the hornet nests that bordered the orchard. Most people would call hornets dangerous, but to me they were guardians, an organic, self-managed shield against pests. They kept the orchard thriving without chemicals, and in return, I respected their boundaries. It was a symbiotic peace, but peace never lasts long in my family. The first sign of trouble was the unfamiliar rental car rolling slowly down my gravel driveway, kicking up dust like distant thunder. I saw her before she saw me. My sister Selene, stepping out in sunglasses worth more than my month's feed budget. She looked like she was arriving at a fashion shoot, not a working farm. Her heels clicked against the stone path, totally impractical, but perfectly, undeniably Selene. Mara, she chirped, approaching with arms spread for a hug. When her body pressed stiffly against mine, the familiar coldness seeped through. You look rustic, it's cute. Her compliment felt like a blade wrapped in a ribbon. I forced a smile. Didn't expect to see you. Of course you didn't. You never call, she said, her voice sugar, coated but sharp beneath. So I figured I'd come check on my baby sister, and Grandma's our farm. She said it so deliberately that my stomach tightened. For the rest of the day, Selene trailed me around the property, pretending to marvel at everything. She asked about crop yields, profit margins, equipment values, and far too frequently how much the farm was worth in today's market. Every question felt less like curiosity and more like an appraisal. Still, I tried to soften. I tried to believe that maybe she wanted to reconnect. Maybe grief had finally made her reach out. But cracks in relationships are like cracks in soil once opened. They widen easily. As we walked past the orchards, the hornets buzzed above us in their high wooden nests. The gentle hum was soothing to me but made Selene wrinkle her nose. "What's with the flying death traps?" she asked. "They're harmless if you respect them," I said. "They protect the orchard better than pesticides." She gave a fake shudder. "You always were strange." That night, she stayed in the guest room, claiming she wanted a few days to breathe fresh country air. But I knew Selene. She didn't come for fresh air. She came for something she couldn't name out loud yet. Ownership, value, revenge for old childhood wounds she never let go. She wandered the house inspecting things. She lingered too long near my office. She made calls behind closed doors, and quickly ended them when I walked by. And with every hour she remained under my roof, the soil of my life cracked a little deeper. I didn't know it yet, but the storm had already started. And Selene was the lightning. The first real sign that something was wrong came 3 days after Selene arrived. I woke before dawn, as always, planning to check the irrigation flow before the sun baked the soil. The moment I stepped into the orchard, I felt it. An unfamiliar dryness in the air, like the earth itself was holding its breath. Then I saw the problem. The main irrigation line had been sliced clean open, not torn, not chewed, sliced. I crouched down, fingers grazing the jagged edge of the tubing. Someone had used a blade, a sharp one. A chill crept up my spine. When I told Selene over breakfast, she widened her eyes dramatically. "Oh no, that's terrible, Mara. Maybe you should hire someone to handle all this farm stuff." She waved her manicured hand like the whole operation bored her. "I can handle it," I said. "Sure," she replied, biting into her toast. "But accidents happen when you're stressed. Something might get overlooked, and this place is worth, what, 2 million, maybe more if you modernize." She said it so casually, but every word felt like a stone tossed into my stomach. I wanted to believe the irrigation cut had been a random act, an animal, an accident, but the slice was too precise. Still, I swallowed my doubts, because doubting Selene meant confronting the truth I wasn't ready to face. Over the next week, small misfortunes multiplied. My seedlings vanished from the greenhouse, the door left wide open, despite me locking it every night. A supplier emailed to confirm, that I wanted to cancel my order. I hadn't canceled anything. A business partner from the co-op called to ask why I'd changed my mind about joining a pesticide trial program. The very idea made my skin crawl. Each event could have been a simple mistake. But altogether, they formed a story, one written in invisible ink I was just beginning to see. Still, Selene kept playing the doting sister. She'd bring me lemonade during work hours, though the timing always felt suspicious, like she wanted to be present when something went wrong. She'd take calls on the porch, lowering her voice when she noticed me approaching. At night, I heard her tiptoeing through the house, long after she claimed she was exhausted from farm life. One afternoon, I caught her in the barn, hovering over the ledger I kept locked in a cabinet. The cabinet was open. "What are you doing?" I asked, louder than I intended. She jumped and spun around. "Nothing. I thought you said I could look around. I didn't say you could go through my financials." She plastered on a wounded expression. "Wow, I was just trying to understand your work. You're so paranoid, Mara." Her words stung, not because they were true, but because she'd accused me of the very thing she was causing. That same evening, while checking on the hornet nests, I noticed damage, thin pry marks on the outer shell of the oldest colony box. My heart tightened. Whoever tampered with it had tried to open the nest, but stopped before fully triggering the swarm. And I knew Selene hated the hornets. The truth settled heavily in my chest, a truth I didn't want. Selene wasn't just meddling. She was sabotaging the most vital systems on the property. Bit by bit, quietly, methodically. A thief doesn't always break in all at once. Sometimes she moves in slowly, smiling sweetly, pretending she belongs. That night, lying awake, I stared at the ceiling and wondered, how long had Selene been planning her silent takeover? And how much more of my farm, and my heart, would she rot before I forced myself to see it? By the time the third week passed, my nerves felt like frayed wires. Every day brought a new sign of Selene's interference, subtle, deniable, hidden beneath a veneer of sisterly concern. But nothing compared to what I discovered the night everything changed. It began with the sensor alert. At 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed, its screen glowing in the dark. Motion detected, Orchard East. That was where the hornet colonies lived, my most delicate, most essential ecosystem. The place Selene had lingered around with too much interest. The place I had been guarding with worry for days. I slipped out of bed, grabbed my jacket, and headed to the barn office where the security monitors hummed quietly. I clicked on the live feed. My breath froze. Selene was on the screen, dressed in all black, hood pulled up, gloved hands gripping a long metal object, something heavy, something wrong. She moved with a focus I'd never seen from her, the kind of determination you only get when driven by greed, desperation, or both. "No," my voice cracked in the empty room. She approached my oldest horn, it nest the colony my grandfather helped me build. The pride of the farm's ecosystem, the heart of my orchard, in her hands glinted a crowbar. I felt something inside me collapse. Not shock, not confusion, recognition. She hadn't changed. She hadn't even tried. She was here for the kill. I left the monitors and crept across the field, staying behind the tree shadows. The moon cast a pale light on her as she raised the crowbar. She muttered to herself, voice sharp with resentment, "Stupid bugs, stupid farm, stupid perfect little Mara. Let's see how perfect things are after this." The first swing cracked the outer wooden shell of the nest. The sound echoed like a snapped bone. The hornet stirred. A soft hum at first, warning, confusion, but Selene swung again, harder, splintering the entrance. The vibrations traveled through the colony like an earthquake. The hum rose, my heart pounded with it. Selene. I wanted to shout to stop her, but something deep in me told me not to. She had chosen this path. She had broken every boundary, crossed every line, ignored every kindness. This was her moment to face the consequences she carved for herself. She swung a third time. The nest split. The swarm awakened. It happened all at once. An eruption of dark wings and angry sound, pouring from the shattered wood like a living storm. Selene stumbled back, eyes huge, breath caught in her throat. Then she screamed. She dropped the crowbar and ran, flailing wildly, swatting at the air as if she could fight nature itself. The hornets followed in a furious wave, not out of malice, but instinct, defending their home from the intruder who attacked them. "Mara, help me," she shrieked, her voice cracking. But I didn't move from the shadows, not because I wanted her to suffer, but because she wasn't truly in danger. The hornets would chase, sting, warn, and then retreat. That was their cycle, their justice. Selene crashed through the orchard path, her designer clothes snagging on branches, her hair tangled, her cries fading into whimpers as the swarm loosened its pursuit. By the time she spilled out onto the gravel road, the hornets had returned to their broken home. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing, itching, humiliated, her face blotched with swelling, her pride shattered. I stood beneath the trees, heart aching and strangely steady. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't cruelty. This was truth, raw, undeniable, buzzing in the cold night air. Nature had delivered the lesson I never could, and Selene, for once in her life, had no one left to blame but herself. The morning after the swarm incident dawned with a stillness that felt almost deliberate, as if the farm itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what I would do next. My first steps across the grass were slow, cautious, almost reverent. Dew clung to the orchard leaves, glittering gently in the early sun, and I could smell the faint sweetness of blossoms drifting from the trees. Life, even after chaos, insisted on continuing. Selene, however, did not. By sunrise she had packed her bags, her bruised pride far more swollen than the hornet stings dotting her arms and neck. She stomped down the stairs, each step a violent punctuation to the silence we'd been sitting in all morning. Her face was blotched, her hair wild, and her eyes burned with a mix of rage and humiliation. "You let them do this to me," she hissed. I set down the mug I was holding. "You attacked their home, Selene. Oh, don't give me that mystical farm nonsense. They're bugs. You chose bugs over me, over your family." I looked at her for a long moment, letting the weight of all our years settle between us. Every childhood fight she escalated, every lie she twisted into a weapon, every time I reached out and she slapped my hand away. Finally I said quietly, "Family doesn't sabotage what they claim to love." For a heartbeat, she faltered. Then her face hardened. "You'll regret this, Mara." But I didn't respond, and she didn't wait. She stormed out, slammed the door, and left a streak of gravel dust trailing behind her rental car as she sped away, leaving the farm, and the truth far behind her. The next days were an exhausting rhythm of restoration. I replaced the irrigation lines she'd sliced and reseeded the greenhouse flats she'd stolen. I repaired the hornet nests, working carefully, whispering apologies to the creatures who had protected my land better than any security system ever could. They hummed softly around me as if acknowledging the peace offering. The farm felt bruised but not broken. I realized I felt the same way. Each repaired board, each restored valve, each tiny act of rebuilding reminded me that healing isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It's quiet, persistent, humble like seeds working their way back toward the light. About a week later, Selene began sending emails, first angry ones, accusing me of orchestrating the attack, then pathetic ones begging for sympathy, then manipulative ones dripping with false guilt. I didn't open most of them. I didn't need to. The subject lines told me everything. What Selene wanted wasn't closure. It was access, and I finally understood that access to me was something she had long misused. So I blocked her. For the first time in my life, the boundary held. Months passed and the farm flourished. The orchard trees bloomed fuller than the year before. The hornets rebuilt their colony stronger, their hum now a familiar comfort. My partnerships recovered, my business grew, and the land thrived as if relieved the storm had passed. Sometimes I stood at the edge of the orchard at twilight, watching the hornets glide through the fading light, guardians of a peace I had fought hard to reclaim. And as the warm wind brushed my face, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, pride, not just in the farm but in myself. Selene had tried to uproot me, but all she did was show me how deeply I belonged here. This land, this life, this legacy, it was mine to protect. And now, finally, I knew I could.